Hey, I'm Dr. Margaret Rutherford, and this is Self-Work on YouTube. So glad you're here. We've got a great guest for you today. Thanks for being here.
The Arkansas Birthing Project is located in the main office is in Little Rock, but we do have birthing projects in various counties around Arkansas, and primarily in Southeast Arkansas. We primarily work with African American women and women of color.
So, but tell me about how long have you been the head of the birthing project, and what do y'all do, and talk about some maternal mortality issues.
Well, the Arkansas Birthing Project is an affiliate of Birthing Project USA, which is a 40-year-old Black maternal and child health organization that originally formed in California, but it was founded by a woman from Arkansas.
Really?
Her name is Catherine Hall Trujillo, and she was from Moscow, Arkansas.
Yeah.
But she was actually working for the California Department of Health and Human Services and was spending a huge amount of money as a fiscal agent on preterm babies care.
Okay.
And so she decided to conduct a social experiment with several of her friends. They decided to provide support to pregnant women during their pregnancy. There were 10 of them, and they each got a mentee, a little pregnant woman, who they provided material and physical supports to during pregnancy and social supports. And they were astounded by the outcomes. Traditionally, statistically, the young women that they partnered with should have had really poor outcomes, and they didn't. The babies were born close to term or on term. The babies weighed more than 5.5 pounds at birth.
Wow.
They had a non-eventful delivery, and they did quite well after birth. And so they replicated this in that community several times, and ended up at later time actually establishing a health clinic in a really at-risk community in the Sacramento area. And this kind of just sort of spread through informal networks, the idea of doing this. Well, I saw Catherine when she came to Arkansas about 10 years after she had founded the Birthing Project. She did a program for the March of Dimes, and I was mesmerized by the work she was doing. And so I became involved with the Birthing Project at that time, and had been working on it part-time until I actually retired from my work as an administrator with the Arkansas Department of Health, and have been doing the Birthing Project full-time now in Arkansas since 2016.
I should add, you have your doctorate in nurse practitioner.
But what we do is we go into local communities and train community women to provide support to women during their pregnancy.
What did those initial mentors do, or what does that support look like?
Well, we primarily focus, of course, on social supports, because many of the women that we interact with are women who people identify as people who fall through the cracks. Perhaps they don't have a permanent place to live, or they have food insecurity, or they're not seeking prenatal care for various reasons because they don't know how to access it, or they don't have transportation, all those kinds of issues.
They don't have insurance. Yeah,
exactly. And some of them don't have family members to support them. They don't have close, people in their lives that will provide that support during this really special time in their lives. And so our sister friends, who are our mentors, we encourage them to become really familiar with the resources in their local communities, and to work with their little sisters to access those resources that she needs to have a good outcome. We require that the sister friends work with the little sisters to make sure they get a source of prenatal care, and that they keep their prenatal appointments. If they need transportation, help them work on identifying that. We encourage our sister friends not to make your little sister dependent on you, but to encourage her to be independent.
That's an important point, isn't it? Wow.
Yes.
So what about postnatal care? Because last week I did this episode on postpartum depression and found out that suicide and drug overdose counts for about 25% of the mortality deaths. Is that right? The maternal deaths, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Mental health related issues certainly have a huge impact. And unfortunately, some physical health issues also impact our maternal mortality issues, such as undiagnosed health conditions such as diabetes, cardiac disease, hypertension, which can lead to eclampsia, preeclampsia, and eclampsia, and which can be very fatal. And unfortunately, for many African American women, it is.
I'm so sorry. And the couple of articles, 84% of those deaths were preventable.
Yes, that is a that is a
That
huge tragedy for our
huge,
communities. Huge
huge.
tragedy and a huge loss of potential of human potential that could, be at work in these communities, helping to improve the status of our communities. So it's a huge loss that we experience when these things happen.
Yes, it is, as well as the children they bore. So
Yes.
right
And
over.
unfortunately, sometimes we lose the babies as well. We have the fourth highest infant mortality rate in the United States as well,
Do we really?
in Arkansas,
Wow.
which
What are the
is,
states that are
again,
doing it
unacceptable.
better? What are the states that are doing it better, and how are they doing it better?
Well, as you may or may not be aware, many states, over 30 of our states in the United States, have extended the coverage for Medicaid for women postpartum. In Arkansas, their postpartum coverage cuts off for women who are Medicaid eligible after 2 months after delivery.
Oh my
Well,
goodness.
many states, about 30 states, have extended that coverage for the first year of life because these deaths can occur during the postpartum period. Many of them occur during the postpartum period when women don't have coverage. And what they have found is that women will put off going to the doctor because they don't have money to pay for their care. And
Right.
so they put off their symptoms, and they'll deny their symptoms or delay, seeking care until it's unfortunately too late.
What do you
Um,
know for the mental health aspect of things?
Well, I think we do have a real acute shortage of mental health providers in our state, as you probably are very well aware.
Hmm.
And there's some parts of our state that are worse than others. And so dealing with that, in addition to some of the stigma that is associated with seeking psychological care and support,
Right.
is something that we've got to address as a society.
Now, if I read some of the articles disagreed with one another about this, so let me ask you. I read in one article that the mental health problems, suicide and drug overdose, were more prevalent in minority women, and then than white women. And then another article, it said no, they're about the same.
They're about the same, is
Okay,
in my experience.
okay, okay.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
we have the first trimester, second trimester, third trimesters, when during the time the baby is born. And
sure.
then, of course, that fourth trimester, which is the immediate period after birth, actually that first year after birth of the baby. I think something that we need to make some distinctions about are what we call baby blues. Have you heard that terminology,
Oh
baby
yes, of course I
blues
have. Hmm.
versus postpartum depression? And I think sometimes people get those things confused. If the baby blues, a little bit of melancholy and uncertainty and perhaps a little depression after birth because of all this tremendous hormonal and body changes that are occurring happen in a woman. If it lasts longer than 2 weeks, then we're really talking about postpartum depression.
And speaking of that, there is a medication that has just been FDA approved for postpartum depression, specifically for postpartum depression. I'm real excited about that. Um, but my podcast goes well. I have listeners from all over the world, but certainly all over the United States. What could a woman do, or a friend of someone who's pregnant? Are all these? Is it called the Tennessee Birthing Project? Is it called the Mississippi Birthing Project? What what are or the California, whatever it is? How can people plug themselves in or plug people in that they know and love into these kinds of programs?
Well, the Birthing Project is just one of many opportunities I think we have available in our local communities to provide support to women during this really critical time. There's been a lot of discussion about community doulas as well and the supports that they
Yes.
provide. And I think there's room for everyone. The Birthing Project specifically, we identify people who are lay people. They don't necessarily have to be trained medical people, and they don't necessarily have to have any kind of certification, but we work with them and support them so that they can in turn feel free and empowered to support an individual person, basically like becoming a good friend of that person, a
Okay.
reliable and trustworthy friend. And Birthing Project USA, which is based out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, is sort of the hub where people go to get information, to establish
Right.
birthing projects in other states. There are even some international birthing projects in Cuba, in Ghana, and other foreign nations.
But can you tell the audience what a doula is?
Well, a doula is an individual who is specially trained and experienced to provide to women support during very critical times, either during their pregnancy, during labor and delivery, postpartum, and there are even some uh, bereavement doulas who actually provide specialized support to
I didn't
women,
know
people
that.
during that, yes, during that real critical time. But doulas are trained to recognize important needs that women and their families have as well, and to provide those supports to them to make sure that they have good pregnancy outcomes. So they are right there with women in the delivery area. They're that other voice and that other set of eyes and hands in that area and space that women need often when they're going through this real critical period, because as you know, it's very stressful, and often sometimes decisions have to be made pretty quickly, and it is good to have someone there who is very focused on the needs and the desires of the woman involved during this real critical period.
Right. So if people wanted to either volunteer or donate, they could go to the Birthing Project USA.
Or the Arkansas Birthing Project if they're in Arkansas.
Sure. Well, yeah, a lot of my listeners are New Yorkers and California people. So
Birthing Project USA. It's listed. They do have there's a website, Birthing Project USA, and we'd be happy. They can indicate that they're interested in more information, and we'd be happy to get in touch with them. Arkansas has been asked to do some of the training for Birthing Project USA because they appreciate the model that we have in our state. We're the only state that has multiple birthing projects in different counties. Compared to some of the other states that you may have just one birthing project in one particular area in their state.
I have a sneaking suspicion that's about you.
Well, I'm very passionate about this work. I'm very committed to it. And I just want to make sure that our next generation is prepared to provide supports that women need during this really important time in our lives. We're building our communities, and we want to make sure that we get the full benefit of every person, the full humanity of every person in our communities, safely delivered in our communities and safely ensconced in our communities, empowered to achieve the goals that God has set before them so that they can be full functioning citizens in our society.
I couldn't, very well said and eloquently said, by the way. So I'm so glad you could come on. And I hope to, again, it's Birthing Project USA, or if you live in Arkansas, it's the Arkansas Birthing Project. This is Dr. Zenobia Harris, and I'm delighted, absolutely delighted that you've joined me today. Thank you so very much.
Dr. Margaret, can I do one more plug regarding Every Mother Counts? Every Mother Counts has been very generous working with us. They actually have produced a film called Giving Birth in America, Arkansas. Oh. And we are encouraging people to access that film. It can be accessed on Every Mother Counts website to schedule viewings of the film. And if you are interested in having discussion groups set aside, we can certainly arrange that for you too, because we want people to talk about this very important issue of maternal mortality in our state and come together on solutions for this very important issue.
What is the name of it again? Because I will put it in the show notes.
Giving Birth in America, Arkansas. And it's on the Every Mother Counts website.
Okay, I got it.
Thank you. And thank you to Every Mother Counts, too, for their support.
Yeah, they seem like an incredible organization.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Margaret.
Of course, anytime.
All right, let's stay in touch.
Okay, bye. We're so glad you were here today. You can find Self-Work anywhere you listen to podcasts, and we'll be back with something for YouTube soon. Take care. Bye for now.